India announced the new education policy on 29 July 2020. The Indian Air Force boasts its aerial superiority with French-made Rafale jets. The Serum Institute of India gets the nod for Oxford trials. Assam and Bihar ravaged by floods. Technology giant Google announces $10 billion India Digitization Fund, even as Reliance Jio gears up for 5G. Over 50 China-developed apps banned in India. Sino-American relations deteriorate as tensions mount in the South China Sea. American teenager hacks Twitter accounts of high-profile figures. The USA begins its formal withdrawal from the WHO. A Malaysian court has sentenced former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak to 12 years in prison. An Afghan teenager shot 2 Taliban gunmen dead. Father LeBlond School produces astounding results in the 2019-20 board examinations. The teachers attend various training and professional development sessions online even during the lockdown. July was packed full of events for the students and staff on the extracurricular front, including an inter-house online debate. Father LeBlond School conducted its first online school assemblies, setting yet another benchmark. Father LeBlond School hosted a webinar, a panel discussion on the National Education Policy, which was aired live on Facebook and YouTube on 15th of August 2020. We have a special report on paradigm shift in education post-COVID-19.
Despite the ravages of the global pandemic, India has reasons to rejoice as a gamut of progressive development have taken place in July. From the delivery of the French Rafale jets to the new education policy. Here is Anmol Bhagat with the national news.
Thank you, Indrakshi. The latest and the biggest update that we have now is about the National Education Policy 2020. Yes, it took the government of India 34 years to actually introduce a new education policy in the country. The new policy provides greater flexibility to the students by removing the rigid distinction between sciences and arts. It also replaces the existing 10+2 curriculum with a new 5+3+3+4 curriculum. It also seeks to enable vocational training for the students from a very young age and also seeks to introduce a new system of report cards. A system which is more comprehensive in nature and also provides for self-assessment by the students themselves. It also seeks to allocate 6% of the GDP to education. Meanwhile, it also states that wherever possible, the medium of instruction in all schools until at least class 5 shall be in home language, regional language, local language or mother language. This, however, is criticized by several people, especially given the fact that it might be problematic for students who are often transferred from one state to another, mostly because of their parents' job obligations. On the defense front, the first batch of 5 Rafale jets of the 36 ordered by India has arrived at the IAF Air Force Station Ambala. While the COVID-19 cases are rising rapidly in India, the Serum Institute of India gets nod for Oxford vaccine trials. Meanwhile, several other potential vaccines all across the world are already under the human trial phase. Due to heavy rainfall, Bihar and Assam now face the rage of the floods. Several people claim that these natural floods have now become very deadly and disastrous as a direct result of climate change. Several people also allege that the mainstream national media is largely ignoring this news. On the field of technology, the tech giant Google has announced for a $10 billion India Digitization Fund. Meanwhile, Reliance Jio is also looking forward to introduce its 5G technology very soon. The government of India has also banned several apps over security concerns. That's all for today. Stay tuned for more updates. This is Anmol Bhagat, National Correspondent, FLS News.
From the breach of Twitter accounts to the breach of faith between the US and WHO, the international stage has been ablaze by one controversial news after the other. Meenakshi Nandi, our international correspondent, has met.
In a matter of weeks, the Trump administration has imposed sanctions over punitive policies in Hong Kong and China's western region of Xinjiang. It took new measures to suffocate Chinese innovation by cutting it off from American technology and pushing allies to look elsewhere. It has challenged China's claims in the South China Sea, setting the stage for sharper confrontation. As tensions between Beijing and Washington continue to simmer regarding who owns the South China Sea, the US aircraft carrier Nimitz and Ronald Reagan conducted rare dual-carrier operations there in July. As tensions mount in the Asia-Pacific region, tensions skyrocketed online in July as the Twitter account of many, including some high-profile figures, were hacked. The Tampa Bay Times, a U.S. newspaper, reported that a 17-year-old from Tampa, Florida, is at the center of a Twitter hack scheme which gave him and two others access to the high-profile accounts of Bill Gates, Barack Obama, and many other celebrities with millions of followers. Graham Evan Clark was arrested at his home in Greater Northdale, according to Hillsborough State Attorney's Office. The two others charged are 22-year-old Nima Fazeli of Orlando and 19-year-old Mason Shepard of the United Kingdom, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in California. Now I give it over to Athar.
Even as the COVID-19 pandemic intensifies in the United States, on July 7, 2020, US President Donald Trump notified the US Congress that he had sent a formal notification to the United Nations of the US withdrawal from the World Health Organization, WHO. Not only is the United States a critical player in the global health, but the WHO is deeply integrated into US public health efforts at home. Under US law, the President cannot immediately and unilaterally withdraw from the organization. However, the President's actions will have immediate effects. Trump is moving rapidly to freeze relations, disrupting ongoing operations of the US health agencies. The US President had previously accused the WHO of being controlled by China. A court in Malaysia has sentenced former PM Najib Razak to 12 years in jail after finding him guilty of all 7 counts in the first of several multi-million-dollar corruption trials. Najib had pleaded not guilty to the charges of criminal breach of trust, money laundering, and abuse of power. The case against him is seen as a test of Malaysia's anti-corruption effort. In a sensational turn of events, an Afghan girl shot dead 2 Taliban terrorists and wounded several more after they dragged her parents from their home and killed them, news agency AFP reported. The fighters had stormed the family home in the village of Riva last week because the teenager's father was a government supporter. The girl, identified as Kamar Gul, took the family's AK-47 assault rifle and shot dead the two. Gul, believed to be aged between 14 and 16, and her younger brother had been taken to a safer place, the reports said.
The school was abuzz with various activities in July, but none as significant as the board examinations results. The 2019 and the 2020 ICSE batch scored an astounding 87.1% class average. 4 individual subject performances logged into the 100 clubs, while 44% of the students got into the 90s club. The highest scorer is Kakuli Ghosh with an overall 94.8%, followed by Shnanshu Datta at 94.6%, and Divesh, Sayam and Pranay collectively in the third position with 94.4%. Teachers have been busy as well, not only with online classes but training sessions. Most notably, a workshop on 31st of July on inclusive teaching learning for virtual classrooms by renowned educational consultant Veena Raijada. The month of July was especially hectic as well as exciting on extracurricular front, with competition ranging from the inter-house painting, chess, ludo certification courses such as the White Hat Junior program on coding, as well as an inter-house debate competition on the 25th, with Vadai House having the last laugh in the senior section and Tista House in the middle school section. Last but not the least, the new students' prefectorial body addressed the school in an online assembly on 20th of July, while on the 27th, The class 11ers addressed the whole school on the topic online sources of income and employment in a morning assembly. On the same day, international bodybuilding sensation Mr. Manoj Majumdar addressed the juniors on the topic importance of exercise.
Father LeBlond School hosted a webinar, a panel discussion on the National Education Policy, which was aired live on the 15th of August 2020. The panelists include stalwarts of the education industry who highlighted some key points of the National Education Policy and discussed its implications. The webinar revolved around the recently announced National Education Policy and its major takeaways and principles. The panelists of distinguished speakers for the sessions were Subina Shunglu, founder, principal and joint secretary of Sri Sri Academy, Kolkata; Devika Nade, co-founder of Shikshangan Education Initiatives; Surnima Chakraborty, former principal of La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata; Vijay Gupta, co-founder of Shikshangan Education Initiatives. The webinar was moderated by the Deputy Directors of Father LeBlond School. They are Vyas Paul Chaudhary and Mukul Paul Chaudhary.
The world has indeed undergone tremendous changes in the year 2020, and all walks of life have been affected. Economies across the world have been severely affected, and health services are straining to the bursting point. The pandemic has in fact exposed the vulnerabilities of the infrastructures of megacities. But perhaps no other sector has undergone such a drastic paradigm shift as education. Our editor, Mr. Narattam Saikia, has more on this.
In a school in eastern India, the playground wears a deserted look, while the classrooms remain strangely silent. And this is pretty much the case around the world as educational institutions continue to remain closed while the pandemic continues to take its toll. But like the proverbial silver lining, perhaps this year has come as a breather for many, including educators, who can perhaps utilize this opportunity to rethink the very essence and meaning of education. Is it merely preparing students for public examinations? Or is it deep, actionable learning conducive to physical and, most importantly, mental engagement of the pupils? Perhaps this lull can be used as an opportunity by educators to rethink and indeed to rebuild three core aspects. Number one is pedagogy. Number two is modality. And number three is structure. Pedagogy is the method and practice of teaching. Of course, the entire world has taken to online teaching and learning for the time being. But what will happen if and when the pandemic becomes history and schools and colleges reopen? Shall we revert to lecture-based teaching, something we have been doing anyway online via Zoom or Google Meet? The science of learning tells us that students absorb knowledge best when they are curious, when they struggle to find the answers, and when they discover and apply concepts. This can be achieved through formal and informal discussions, a robot, a dissection, a piece of software, an independent research study, a musical composition, or a community activity. Deep engagement is the need of the hour. Though online education has become a popular terminology, most of it is in reality only online lectures. Properly designed online content involves short, well-produced videos that are more attuned to the ability of the human mind to focus. This can also include games and simulations. Of course, Zoom and Google Meet can be used by students to interact with peers and teachers, but after the lockdown ends, the online modality should be used for the most important aspect of education, in-person engagement. The structure of education, in India at least, is very brittle today, as it is mostly focused on clearing examinations rather than preparing pupils for future employment. 2 or 4-year degrees cannot be the only options. High school students ought to have exposure to the professional world through apprenticeships and vocational courses. The COVID crisis has taught working adults that they need to acquire new skills swiftly, and micro-credentials such as online certification courses in coding or financial engineering are the order of the day. One way or the other, The structure of education so far has been very rigid, to say the least. And perhaps it is time to allow for more heterogeneous elements to make it more industry-oriented. The Government of India's new education policy, announced on the 29th of July, has come as a much-awaited relief for not only educators but also students. And it is hoped that in the long run, in the near future, a lot of things will turn for the better. This is Narottam Saikia reporting for FLS News.